सो आज का हमारा डिस्कशन फिर से मणिपुर पे होगा, क्योंकि मणिपुर में रिसेंटली थोड़ी डेवलपमेंट्स हुई हैं। थोड़ी कुकी ग्रुप्स के बीच में लड़ाई हुई है। द यूनाइटेड कुकी लिबरेशन फ्रंट with other militant groups and village volunteers came to blows, and there was a recent murder of a Meitei woman who was married to a Kuki MLA, Charu Bala Haukwip, and she was assassinated in a bomb attack. So we thought that these developments were glaring and pretty interesting, and we thought of continuing our Manipur series. So Raj, can you take over the conversation?
Well, lately I've just been trying to track what has been going on with respect to Manipur in the Parliament of India, the temple of our democracy. Last year also, when the violence had just spiked in the month of May 2023, there was a lot of uproar in the parliament. Opposition parties took notice of the issue. Even government gave its clarifications in the parliament. Now we have a new Lok Sabha in session, or rather just concluded one of its sessions. So I thought that I would trace and track the statements made by both the MPs who represent the inner Manipur constituency, the outer Manipur constituency, and the impact, the responses they got. Both the MPs, first, let's speak about the inner Manipur MP, Bimal Koijam. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Forgive me, especially our friends from Manipur, if I got his name wrong. But Mr. Bimal Akoijam gave a very fiery speech in the Lok Sabha, and it got a lot of traction. It spread a lot, and it gave a lot of confidence to the people of Manipur, because he basically said that there is a lot of hurt and anger in the people of the Manipur Valley, the constituency that he represents. And he said that as a result, there is a huge sense of disillusionment in the area with the present establishment. He went on to say that he beat a very tall leader of the BJP. This is very significant because he is a new entrant to politics, and he beat a very tall leader of the BJP who had been a cabinet minister in the N. Biren Singh government. So, as a new entrant, a filmmaker and an academician who he is,
He's from
he's
JNU, right?
yeah,
So,
he's a faculty at JNU.
yeah,
And he went on to say that if a leader like me can beat a tall leader from the BJP, it means that the people have a lot of
anger.
distrust and anger towards the government. I think what he also went on to say was that the people have put a nobody like me in the parliament.
Yeah,
And I think that comment went far to sort of win support locally, because people sort of
resonated with that.
empathize or resonate with that
Hmm.
statement that a nobody like him has been put in the parliament.
Yeah.
And another fiery speech, equally fiery, equally impactful speech, was made by Alfred Kannagam Arthur, the MP from Outer Manipur. He also has an interesting background. He has been a vocalist in a rock band,
Hmm.
and then he went on to join politics later. He's got a lot of good things in his ideology. He's a strong advocate for youth reform, engagement of youth. He speaks about women empowerment and youth reformation and things of those sort. And he basically sort of raised objections to the fact that there were very few allocations to the state of Manipur in the union budget that had been presented. So his fiery speech was made in the budget session of the Lok Sabha, and he was raising objections to a dwindling state of Manipur receiving such little financial grants from the union
Yes.
government. And we already know the northeastern states, which are home to many of the particularly vulnerable tribal groups also, they rely heavily on central subsidies and centrally sponsored schemes and developmental funds that may be released from the Ministry of Development of Northeastern Region or the Ministry of Home Affairs. So I think that objection was very passionate, and it was a strong voice that came out of Manipur. It would be unfair to say that the government hasn't responded. The government has also made substantial remarks on Manipur on 3rd of July, and about statements were made where the MHA stated that about 11,000 FIRs have been registered, about 500 people have been arrested for wrongdoings in Manipur, and many more violent protests took place in the state in 1993, which understandably the government will toe its line.
Mhm.
They will say that the previous existing governments maybe didn't take that much
Yeah.
cognizance of
Yeah,
the
so
issue. Jay.
for context, in 1993 there was inter-ethnic violence between Kukis and the Tangkhul Nagas. Equal ferocity, equal amounts of killings and violations of human rights on both the sides. And that time the Meiteis were helping out the Kukis, because from the hill areas the Kukis were being driven inside the valley. And specifically in places like Ukhrul, whereas Cookies ended up dominating in places like More, where they totally got rid of the Nagas. And it was like a very weird type of fraternal coexistence that was happening between the Cookies and the Meiteis around that time. Whereas Meiteis around that time were fighting their own communal war with the Pangal Muslims in 1992, which coincidentally coincided with the demolition of Babri Masjid, because Pangals are also Muslims and Meiteis are Hindus. So you could see, I mean, obviously they're not correlated, but I can sense that the tensions must have carried on to both the communities in Manipur, of course, because it was such a religiously significant moment in the Indian Union. And in that also you had a lot of deaths, a lot of homes being torched, and a lot of people being rendered homeless. So this is the violence that the Prime Minister and the Home Minister were trying to hint at.
Interesting
And
flashpoint of
yes, interesting flashpoint of events.
of
And right now, if we just talk about the communal nature of the conflict, the NSCIM just came out and gave a statement against Meitei outfits like Meitei Lipun and Meitei-Pangal, and they've said that these organizations are blatantly Christian, and their anti-Christian policy is something which worries them. And this somehow puts the focus on the relations between the Thankuls and the Meiteis, because till now the Thankuls hadn't said anything about the conflict, which could be seen as partisan. Their views were totally neutral. But this statement comes at a time where we should look or take we should take notice, because if the conflict permeates into a conflict between Thankuls and the Meiteis as well, then the state is headed for a total social breakdown. And
like a free for all
like a free
violence
for all
might
violence
start.
amongst all ethnic groups, all tribal groups, because the Thankuls are not going to stop at Meiteis are not going to stop at Thankuls, and eventually the guns would be pointed at everyone,
I
because the
think
NS.
you can
Yeah.
perceive a three-way Thankul versus Kuki versus
Yes.
Meitei versus
Yes.
any other tribal group.
Yeah, and because again, as we noticed, like Cookie is not one tribal ethnicity. It has a lot of other tribal groups which said that they would come under one umbrella term, which became the Cookiezo term, and then you have those similar group representing themselves in Mizoram as well. And these people are actually also in a position of conflict amongst themselves. Like there was a massive there was a massive instance of fighting between Hamar cookies and Paite cookies a few years back. And recently as well, you had a cookie organization coming to blows with another cookie village volunteer force, and that led to 4 deaths in a proper firefight. So you have you have now a situation of so much lawlessness that a lot of personal disputes amongst these people is also being solved through the means of a gun. And that's what happens when you see social disorder and social collapse, as I had mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, when the state machinery fails, it
Mm.
fails across levels. And we can assume that the state response in Manipur may not be that strong. The effective response of government institutions, you can assume in a state which is nearing a situation of civil war, is not that good.
Uh,
Although
yeah.
recently the Union Home Secretary has said that CRPF has been deployed to most of the core violence struck areas. They may have also helped curtailing some of the violence because the locals have more trust on the CRPF. It's seen as a neutral force, while people claim that the Manipur police is known to be biased towards the Meiteis.
Meitei.
Assam Rifles is known to be biased, maybe people say, to the Cookies, because
Yeah.
Assam Rifles has always been deployed in the hill areas, so
Yeah.
they have a interaction with the
Funnily, two battalions of the Assam Rifles who were posted in
Cookies. So,
Assam Rifles who were posted in Manipur have been shifted to the forest regions of Jammu to fight the new brewing war over there.
so now
So
you have a thinning of forces in Manipur
yeah.
when the situation has not totally healed.
Mhm.
So there's going to be a challenging management that security forces will have to have to secure the eastern frontiers or the
Yeah.
eastern commands of their organizations, because you have tensions in Manipur, you have the recent situation in Bangladesh, which can lead to fears of spillovers
Of course,
into
of course.
northeastern states in India. And so I think redeployment, restructuring of central armed police forces, army battalions is going to be crucial. How they are deployed, how they are focused, how much action they see in the next few weeks. Because my assessment is that the next few months aren't going to be easy.
It's very, very interesting to note that there is an entire other insurgency that the Cookies are also fighting in the Chadgaon tracts of Bangladesh.
Wow.
So the
Wow.
eastern part of Bangladesh, which is close to the Myanmar border, the Cookies are fighting an insurgency there as well. So if you
Mm.
read some news coming out from Bangladesh, you will always find couple of soldiers from BGB being killed or the Bangladesh army being ambushed by Cookie militants. So there is another perspective in Bangladesh with respect to Cookie militants.
Right.
And coming back to my first point with respect to the Assam Rifles, two battalions being shifted to Jammu, the moment this happened, you can see the fissures returning. You have the assassination of Charubala Hawkeep, a Meitei woman who was married to a Cookie politician. And from what we can understand is that it wasn't motivated on ethnic lines. I think it was some property dispute between relatives. And once that happens, you can actually see how in a place where there is absolute lawlessness, people turn their guns on each other. I mean, not against ethnicity or caste, but they will turn their guns against uh, their family members.
Yeah.
In fact, sorry.
No,
In
no.
fact, to reinforce my point, I would take you back to Bihar in the 90s, because in 90s Bihar was also facing a similar situation of lawlessness where a lot of militia groups had started running the roost. And in that also, when it wasn't like full out caste wars, there was always inter-family conflicts that used to take place, where you had brother blowing up a brother outside court premises, you had brothers entering their brother's house and shooting them. So this happened in Bihar also in late 90s. That's a separate episode, but I was just like drawing parallels
Yeah,
as
I
to
think
yeah,
to add to what
yeah,
you're saying,
yeah,
there is a linkage between the Cookie MLA's Meitei wife's
yeah,
killing, who passed away, I think, 3 4 days back
yeah,
after the bomb attack. There is assessment by the police which leads the Manipur police to believe that this may be related to some property dispute. Now, when a state is reeling with conflict, what happens is that the dispute resolution mechanisms also weaken. So there also is a more wider potential for people to misuse that and solve disputes by using arms, as you were drawing the parallel to 1990s Bihar's. You can threaten people easily, you can get an AK and assassinate people,
yeah,
local leaders. And I think this is somewhere also related to land ownership in the political economy of rural India. See, land ownership is associated with influence.
yeah,
As a result, it's politically very consequential. Even a central theme of the Kuki and Meitei dispute is that Meiteis hold a lot of the valley plains, which are more fertile land plains. As a result, the agricultural productivities of those areas are higher. So these land ownership related issues also become significant. When land ownership becomes significant and you have a weak dispute resolution mechanism, how will people resolve land disputes? By killing, by targeted assassinations, by lobbing grenades. And
mhm,
I mean, the list is endless on how creative you can be to kill people in an already disturbed state.
absolutely. In fact, even in Bihar, the CRPF had to be deployed to control the warring castes. But again, that's going to be one of our episodes very soon. That hits
Yeah.
home because we're from Bihar.
Anyway, I
Yeah,
think just to finish up
yeah.
on a weakening, rather a failing state apparatus or social infrastructure, is that I was reading an interview on The Guardian of a 27-year-old girl from the Kukizo community. And she basically said that for the last year and a half, their family has been moving from camp to camp. She sort of blamed the Meitei community for the violence.
Mhm.
Now you counter into from a counter narrative, when you read a Meitei perspective, they will naturally blame the Kuki community. There will be tragic stories on their end also,
Of course.
that we have been pushed out of our homes, we have been attacked, and we now live under threat of attacks from the Kuki community. And the real casualty is the future and the economy of the state. These people are 27 to 28-year olds. Many of them, many of the stories that I was reading online were of people who are professors in agricultural universities. They were economists, or budding economists. They were psychology students. So their ambition was not to patrol their home state with AK-47s, which now unfortunately they are having to do. So I
Yeah.
think I'm
Uh,
going to
Another
end it.
very important point that Mr. Bimal Okoijam mentioned was that Manipur is one of the most militarized regions of the world. And unfortunately, that's the reality of most of the militant hit areas of India. Even after that, even after having so much security forces, you had 60,000 people being displaced from their homes. Why was this led to happen? It is a very, very important question that Mr. Bimal raised, and I think we should ponder on that
That's true.
till we meet the next time.
Yeah, and I mean, just to end on one note,
Yeah.
a food for thought for everybody is that, we have many times spoken about the road infrastructure project that starts from India, goes all the way to Thailand. We have
Hmm.
talked about development of northeastern region. We in fact have a Ministry of India, Government of India, just for that sole purpose. Now you see the lost progress that we could have attained by just developing the northeastern Indian states as a successful transit state.
Absolutely.
That you make pit stops over there, maybe on a road, on like a travel to Thailand. You export goods from there, you export goods over there, you import goods from there, and the successes of this transit economy would have accrued to our northeastern states like Manipur, Nagaland, Mizoram, and these political conflicts in that region, the tribal identities, the usage of these tribal identities to spark more violence, the events of Manipur from May 2023 to now, they are not only causing loss of life, they are causing a huge loss of future livelihood and economic development
I think,
that can
yeah,
become a major part of India's success
absolutely.
story. That's what we are losing out
So,
on.
so to add to what you're saying, I think Manipur's stability in India, the general stability of the Northeast, it has always been correlated with Burma, Burma slash Myanmar. It's nothing new that whenever Burma has been politically
That's also
unstable,
true.
whole of Northeast has been politically unstable. And let's not forget that because of certain foreign interference in the domestic politics of our neighborhood, it has caused a lot of disturbances in our states as well. Why
Yes.
is that the so-called militants and so-called insurgent groups who are fighting the Myanmar junta carrying such sophisticated American-made weapons, which the Indian army has also just started using? So we also have to ponder as to what is the level of outside interference which is also causing these conflicts and this type of destabilization. Because for Manipur to be a good transit point, or Mizoram to be a good transit point towards the greater Southeast Asia, you need to have political stability in what we call Southeast Asia. If you've got a full on civil war happening in Myanmar, it's not going to help. If you've got a full blown insurgency happening in south of Thailand, it's not going to happen. If you've got political instability in Malaysia and Indonesia, it's not going to happen. So, on that note, I think we'll end this brief but informative conversation about Manipur.
I
This was
think
the.
just one last thing
Go ahead.
before we can stop is that a big example of what a successful transit state could have been but failed is Pakistan itself, because Pakistan contains access to a lot of key sea routes in the Arabian Sea, and it also has access to key land routes towards areas, maybe towards Central Asia and Iran and those areas. So if Pakistan wanted, Pakistan could have been a very prosperous transit country by using its port areas to transport goods and then taking the goods forward through a land route. So the loss was faced by Pakistan. Now we publicly pride ourselves in mocking Pakistan, so we should learn from its mistakes. We should not let our areas, which can be a successful transit point, uh, be lost, or rather, their economic progress to be lost to geopolitical tensions.
Absolutely.
On that note, I think we can conclude today's
Thank
conversation.
you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
कोई नहीं I think what I'll do is that जो तेरे mic से record हुआ था ना
Hmm.
उसी को मैं route कर दूंगा
Hmm.
20